Hello, welcome. This is a special edition with David Firestone from Hollywood. Who are you, David? Tell
Well,
something
thank you,
about
Finn.
yourself.
Go ahead, Lars.
Yes, who are you? Tell something about
Good.
yourself.
That's a good question. I'd love to know the answer to that also, but I'll keep it short. I'm originally from the East Coast of the United States, outside of the Philadelphia area, and I've been in the film talent business on and off my entire life, and started out at a young age just loving the film industry. Since we're talking about film in this little ditty, this little interview, that's kind of what I always loved. I was a very big film buff growing up. And at that time when I was growing up, the Hitchcock films were very big at that time. So I was all over those films and watching those types of horror genre, sci-fi, and crime action type films. That was kind of where I loved to spend my time as a kid growing up. And I loved reading. I was a big reader, an avid reader. And as I grew up in life and became a young adult, I got involved in modeling and acting and started doing those types of things. At the same time, I also had a very business-minded background. Went to school, did some modeling and acting there, did some business work there. And then eventually I had a life-changing experience where I got involved with a lovely woman, got married. And so my former wife and I married at a young age, and we flew out to California. What a crazy decision that was. We had kids right away. So basically I moved into the business world. And for many years, I put the acting modeling career aside and decided I had to really take care of my family. That was my mindset at the time. And it was the right choice. And I really enjoyed that aspect of my life. But at the same time, always had the dream in the back of my mind of the film business, and did some small things locally in the area, in the San Francisco area. And then eventually I went through another life-changing experience later in life where unfortunately I went through a divorce, which is tough on the kids, tough on life in general. But I moved to San Francisco proper at that time. And that's when I really immersed myself into the film and entertainment business. I knew at that point in my life that of all the things I've done, it was now time to make that decision, that choice. So I moved into the film entertainment area and decided, because of all the management experience, I was running companies, had my own companies. I was directing and running sales teams and marketing teams, and decided, well, why don't I take that talent that I already had developed over the years and move into the talent management business. And I thought in the back of my mind, I'm sure I can probably act now and then too and have some fun along the way. So that was my path. That's how I ended up where I'm at right now. And it's kind of a snapshot of my life. And now, after 12 years in the business, we're a very effective and organization. We've done a lot of things in Hollywood.
That's interesting. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite film? Oh, God, I have so many. I mean, of course, I love the story of Rocky. I love Back to the Future, more of a sci-fi aspect. A Rocky story is just such an inspirational story. And, I was in my adult years was watching that film, and I loved it. I was always a big Steven Spielberg fan. To me, he's one of the best directors around because he was so detailed oriented in his directing philosophy and how he did things. If you watch his films, it's hard to find anything out of place. And the way he just pulls you into his film, into his genre, and he does that through the way he films, the method he uses, and the stories. He's a great storyteller and always had great storytellers that wrote for him and with him that made his films really pop.
Great. And how did you came into Hollywood?
Well, that's a good question too. When I moved to San Francisco, that's when I made that change and a life change to move into an area that I really loved. And that's when I started the talent management business in San Francisco. And that was 12 years ago. And we started it up there. We actually made a short film up there. We had mainly local talent from the San Francisco Bay Area. There's something called Taft-Hartley. If anyone wants to Google that, go ahead. But that's the way to get your actors into a film. And then also they become Screen Actors Guild eligible. And that's not used as much as it once was, but it's still it's actually a law put into place to help non-union people to get them into the union. So we did that in San Francisco, and we also managed the band at that time, the Bone Davis Band, and we did a lot of stuff between San Francisco and Hollywood, and that's how the business started. And eventually, after about 4 or 5 years, we realized as an organization that we really had to get tight with Hollywood. So we kind of moved everything down to the Hollywood, Beverly Hills area so we could be close to casting, close to the studios. I mean, I was still traveling between San Francisco and LA quite a bit in Hollywood, and going to events, premieres, learning the business, meeting people. So that was always happening. But now we're in Hollywood. We've embraced the activity here, deep into the business here, with many incredible actors that we represent that are getting cast in co-starring roles, guest starring roles. And the name of our organization, which I haven't mentioned, is Firestone Talent. We also have a film group called Firestone Films and Entertainment Group, Inc. So that's how we ended up in Hollywood. We knew we had to be here. We also submit talent, and that made a lot of sense. Some actors submit talent on casting sites, others do not, and agents obviously always do that. And so it's a mixed system in Hollywood of managers and agents. But
Okay.
that's the story of how we ended up in the Hollywood scene.
Okay, I have a question. Did you start with acting or producing, or doing both?
Really started with acting. Was always my love.
What was the
But at
first
the
movie?
same time, I was a film buff. So I loved watching films, learned a lot about just through observation, through osmosis, so to speak, and analyzing films, learning about films. So I also, in the back of my mind, always wanted to produce and one day direct. And so what happened is when we started the business, that's why we did a film. We actually had a talent. His name is Patch Kentz, and he's not quite involved in the business as much as he was at that time, but still active.
What is
And
the
he
first?
actually had a screenplay and a story, and so we decided we'd invest some dollars, and we made a short film based on a screenplay, and I also produced that and also acted in it. It was fun.
What was the first movie that you acted and you produced it?
That was Rockhounds.
Yeah,
And that is not actually, it's
2013.
on our IMDb. Go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah. So I'm checking EMDB, the
IMDb,
database website. Yeah, it says in 2013 it's Rockhounds.
Right, that's correct. So that
Yeah.
was 11 years ago. Yeah.
Then Hit or Twist, Adrift in
Yes.
Time, Taps,
Right.
Street Chase, and Hero.
Right. There have been a lot of films. That's true. So besides being a
The
manager film, I always felt.
Precept Eyes.
I'm sorry.
The Precept Eyes.
Yes. You said Penance?
Yeah, it says it's a short movie or something.
Oh, right. We
Insights with Joshua T.
Right.
Bradford.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yes.
also you did a music video to Woomba.
Right. That whole films that you just mentioned, Hit or Twist. There's also Curious Jam, and then Street Chase. We had in 2018, while I was here in Hollywood, I had met a director. His name was Henny Morales, and he had a company. He had already made a film or two, and was starting more producing in the Hollywood area. And we met at the Montage, which is no longer in Beverly Hills. It's now called the Mayborn, but that's where we met, in a coffee shop. His publicist walked up and said, "Are you a manager, an agent?" I said, "Yes," as I was with the talent at the time. And she introduced me to Henny at that time. And that's how we met. It's funny how when you go out and about, how you meet people, and then you never know what may come out of that. And so we actually collaborated and started producing films together. And we've done at least, I think, as you mentioned, about 4 or 5 features. We had a budget about $1 million on one of them, $700K. So some bigger ones and then some small ones. And we had a lot of our younger talent were in his films, which was great because that allowed our talent to develop their own careers, receive footage to show to casting. So it was a great relationship. And that went from about end of 2018 into through COVID to 2021. And then we kind of took a break because he'd made a lot of films, and you can actually find his films on, he's a website. He's also going to be distributing them internationally. They're working on that right now, Cherry's Jam. But you can find Henning's films, and our talent are in those films. Plus, I had the opportunity, I was very blessed. I was standing on the set one day helping my actors and watching out. And he said, "Hey, we need a gangster," because I do have that look, I'll admit. Can you just go on the background for a second and look like a gangster? I said, "Sure, why not?" So I did that, and then it just evolved from there. He had a character in one of the films called Spike that he was like a hitman kind of gangster, enforcer type, but old school. So he thought I had the perfect look for that. So I was the lead, co-lead on several of the features, and then Spike was the name Spike. This gangster was featured on Street Chase, which is kind of a fun film. But you can find a lot of his films. You can see some of the trailers. You'd have to pay a fee. It's like a $99 on Mindatorium.com. Mindatorium.com. I could text that to you later if you want to put it up.
Okay.
And
You also did the Jimmy Corona Rooney show.
Yes, we did the Jimmy Corona Rooney show. That's the most recent production that Firestone Films had produced. And that was a really fun. Jimmy Corona Rooney is, I'm not sure how many of your audience would know who Mickey Rooney is. Mickey Rooney goes back in the day. Lars, do you know who Mickey is? Mickey Rooney?
Not really.
Yeah, right. That's unfortunately the case now. It's funny how time changes. But he was very popular. He actually was one of those actors that bridged from silent film to talking films. He was a young man in some films that were silent. Then as he became an adult, they moved into the talking area, and he was actually a childhood actor and very big, huge. He did hundreds of films, a really tremendous actor. He hung around with Marlon Brando, Marilyn Monroe, all those older school actors, and had a great life. And so he passed away, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 10. But a great gentleman. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but I did meet his son, William Corona Rooney, also known as Jimmy Corona Rooney. That's his stage name. And Mickey did get around and has some children, and Jimmy is one of them. So, but he's very much like Mickey. He was a very outgoing, funny individual, and that's the way Jimmy is. And so and he does voices. If you look at Jimmy Corona Rooney's IMDb, you'll see that he with a lot of films.
Okay.
He's in some of Spielberg's films.
Okay, so he's very connected to Hollywood.
Yeah, well, one of those things where he was in town in Hollywood, and I knew a gentleman that knew him, and the guy said, this friend of mine, I met him at an event. He said, "You've got to meet Jimmy. He's an awesome talent. You'd be a great manager. I think you'd be a great manager for him." And that's how it started. We met, and it just went from there. And Jimmy's done the E.T. voice. He's done the Minions, a lot of that types of things. You'll see it on his IMDb. And then we decided, well, Jimmy, what you really need is a show. You should have a show. So we started that we filmed it in 2022 in February at the iconic place, the Hollywood Tour Bus facility. We had a studio in there that we set up, and we have a promo piece and a trail that we developed. We haven't really made a big splash with it yet because we're finding the right distribution outlet for it as we speak. With the COVID, and then also with the strike that hit recently, it's kind of slowed a lot of people down in Hollywood. It's really nice that the strike is over. So yeah. That's the Jimmy Corona Rooney, and I actually directed that, produced that.
What about Dakota? Some upcoming stuff also coming?
Yeah, Dakota is a really cool one of our screenwriters. I can't comment much about. He has a little log line up on the IMDb about what it is. It's kind of a pet project for our screenwriter, who's has his own company called Warm Beer Productions. So we're very excited. Again, we're shopping these things, and we have a whole bunch of other projects which are not even listed on IMDb because they're in pre-development and we're working on pitch decks. So we have some really bigger budget films that we're working on in the pipeline, as they say.
Okay. And Time Warpers?
Excuse me.
Time
Oh,
Warpers.
Time Warpers. Yeah, that's the film that I'm one of the co-producers on that, and we've done some pre-production. There's been some filming. It's in the kind of the production phase right now. It's one of our talent, who's we've done work with him. He is also a musician, and so we're also helping him to produce that film.
Okay, great. So what are your future ideas about producing any new movies? Do you have any great ideas? Maybe to make some blockbuster or something?
Oh yeah, we have a larger budget. We have a few budgets that we're co-producing, anywhere from 5 to 10 million. We have even a bigger one that would be a real blockbuster. That it's not really the right time to announce, or we don't. Some of these we purposely don't put up on IMDb because they're confidential. And
Okay.
the issue is, this is Hollywood, once you put a thought or an idea out there and you put it up in writing, people have a tendency to maybe try and copy that. So until you're ready, until you have the IP set up and you have the all that stuff in place, it's better to keep it under your hat. And then once you have the IP tied up and you have the Writers Guild copyright and all those things, then it's time to put it up on IMDb so people know, and then we can help us. Once you have it up on IMDb, then people can help find casting and all those things. So, but we're just taking our time on that at the moment, especially just coming out of the strike. So, but we're going to be, the next few years is going to be even bigger for Firestone Talent and Firestone Films.
That's great, man.
So I'm excited about it.
So
thank you for asking.
What are your future plans for Hollywood? What are your biggest dreams and desires?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, obviously you've already heard some of those desires. I spoke to it earlier, acting, producing, talent management. The talent management business is a tough business. It's a lot of work. We work long hours. People don't realize all the behind the scenes. And when an actor comes up and thanks their team and thanks their manager, that's really appreciated, because there's a lot of hours that go into supporting the talent. And it's a two-way street. I have awesome talent like Tiger Anderson-Jones, who is in Con Air, Patrick Kilpatrick, who has been in a bunch of Spielberg movies, Ricky Dean Logan, who's been in Back to the Future, Freddy Krueger, Friday the 13th. And then we got some wonderful female actors, John Mack, who's acted next to Nicolas Cage and Gerard Butler. And then also Tanya Walker, who is on 15 years on General Hospital. So we have some great actors, and it's a two-way street. A lot of them are very helpful. We help give notes when they're auditioning. We help promote them. And so it always is very fulfilling. So that's the management side of the business. When it comes to our dreams, my dreams and desires as part of the management group, we want to grow Firestone Talent. And obviously, CEA has been, Creative Artists Agency has been a very successful model for a lot of people to follow. I mean, they're the big gorilla on the block. They have a lot of the major A-listers besides WME, William Morris Endeavor. There's also other agencies that are in that field. There's a top 10 agencies in Hollywood. So we don't necessarily compete with them, but we also work with them. I don't know if you mentioned Actors Are Just Like Us. That's a documentary that we just I co-produced and helped cast last year, right during the strike or right before the strike. Because it was a documentary, it wasn't affected by the strike. And we had some great actors on there, and we filmed it at an iconic restaurant in Hollywood, Cafe Roma. And that was, we did a lot of work with CA at that time and some of the bigger studios to utilize their talent. So that's our kind of our goal from a talent management standpoint that's why we've started for the last several years and even when we first started, we did it, besides acting, representing actors, also producing. That's the CEA model. That's what a lot of big agencies do. They package their talent into the big studio films. So we're not quite there yet, but that's our mode of operandi, and it's been working in some of our smaller independent projects. And of course, it's always been my dream, personally, besides managing talent, is to direct, produce, and act in a large budget film, and that's the direction we're going. Like you said, a blockbuster. So, and that'll really put us on the map in a really big way.
Great. And what famous people have you all met?
Oh my God, I met so many down here in Hollywood. Really great people. Jeff Goldblum, a great actor. I met Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold. Really, really class acts. All of those people. And I had a funny meeting with Gene Hackman, who, again, that's an older name actor. He was in French Connection. I met him at an airport just by happen chance. And it's really strange. I was thinking about who I do know, and it's funny. I met Jimmy Kimmel. I've been on his backstage area. Jimmy Fallon, I met at the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills. Jimmy's a great guy. He's just the way he is. The way you see him on TV, that's the way he is in real life. He's a very giving, kind man. And we were in the Polo Lounge, and we just started talking. He was in the booth. This is right after one of the Oscars several years ago. And we were both sitting in booths near each other, and we just started, and there was a piano player playing, and we started clapping. We were the only two people that started clapping in the lounge. It was very funny. And then we just started talking to each other, and then I realized halfway through the conversation, am I talking with Jimmy Fallon? In my own mind, I'm going through that. But really nice guy, and he introduced me to a couple of his producers. At that point, he was transitioning back to New York City, so he just started filming back there. He's on whatever his show is called, the Tonight Show. I forget. I get the shows confused. Excuse me if I have it wrong. But great guy. My assistant showed up, very beautiful assistant, and she showed up later. And he was so nice. He dropped this is pre-COVID. People did these types. He dropped a bottle off of sparkling champagne that they hadn't finished and dropped it off our table for us. He's a very cool guy. And then people realized who he was and started taking pictures of him. Very nice man.
Okay.
I've also met Jay Leno.
Are you working right now? What projects?
Sorry?
What projects are you working on right now?
Oh, right at the moment, really a lot of focus on the talent management business, because the strike delayed a lot of things. No one was really looking at anything during the strike. It really, started slowing things down. But as I mentioned before, we have several projects that are in the works that it's not the right time to talk about them, because we're talking with investors, and possible distributors, and they're bigger projects. We're actually working on a co-production with the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Henning Morales, and he has a bigger film project. He's working on that. We're already tapped. Some of our actors and myself are already tapped for that project. So it's just a matter of time of getting the money together, getting the right people to get it aside. Would expect that in a year or so, we'll be back on set in a big way. Besides all of our main focus is always getting actors work. So besides that, we also are playing heavily in the submission game, which is our main focus, which is submitting actors for casting. And they do tapes. Self-tapes now is done a lot versus being physically in the room with casting. And that's the Hollywood game. That's what's happening here in Hollywood. Okay.
And you like science fiction a lot, mostly?
I do like science fiction, though. The only movie I've ever produced that came close, well, Time Warpers is kind of like that. But the other one, and I like horror, we did Penance, which you did. I don't think you mentioned Penance. That is an LGBTQ film, but it's actually a horror film. And it's not really listed on IMDb, but because at that point I didn't want people knowing, but I was actually the priest on there and actually did the voiceover on that as a short film. But that's a horror film. So yeah, I do like that genre. But we don't have any of that really on the table at the moment.
Okay, and what did you think about my idea to make They Live remake?
Excuse me?
What do you think about my idea?
That's a very interesting topic.
They Live remake.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting topic to. It's kind of relevant in today's environment for sure. So it's something you and I will have to talk about more and see how we can perhaps move that forward.
Yeah, we can together produce it.
That is true. We could.
We just need the right investments.
Yes, the right investment, the right time, and
The right actors.
and a good script.
Yeah, good script. Yeah.
Right, that's true.
Wonderful. Okay, so my other question is, what are the Hollywood insider secrets?
Yeah, you and I talked about that. I have to be a little careful. There's a lot of great behind the scenes stuff, just like the story I told about meeting Jimmy Fallon. And when you're in Hollywood, you kind of keep the secrets to yourself because, number one, you don't want to offend people, and you have to be careful what you say. And I think, I think the important thing is to remember, and when it comes to actors and producers, they are people just like us. They have their own dreams, their own faults, their own great things and not so great things they do. So just like actors are just like us, documentary and post-production, really they're just people. So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things that perhaps are not right. Do some really great things. So that is kind of how I'll leave that at the moment. And perhaps as we talk more, we'll be able to open up the kimono more in that area. And you see a lot of things about Hollywood, and some of that is true and some of that is not.
Is Hollywood being controlled by the CEA, the Central Intelligence Agency?
No, that's a good.
That is
secret? I hear those things, and I've never really been able to validate that myself. And I'm not saying that the CIA or the government may invest in certain films and may promote certain films over others, perhaps. But I don't personally have any proof of that.
Okay, good, man.
Because what I really focus on, Lars, is more. And you hear people who said, "Oh, he's in the CIA," or he was in.
Okay.
Is it true? But
what about the Jews? What about the Jews in Hollywood?
Well, yes, there's a big Jewish group in Hollywood. A lot of the earlier films were done by the Jewish group, and there's certain names again. You hear things like the Jewish Mafia and the Jewish this, and here's what I found is that if you are honest, real, and hardworking, you still can do well in Hollywood. The key is, when some people get, jealous, or they feel like, well, if I'd have been part of that Jewish group, or I'd done that, or I'd been part of, and if it hadn't been for the CIA, that is all kind of like sour grapes, in the sense that the people who make it in Hollywood, and you see them every day, and I've found, which is really interesting, Lars, is that there are some very religious people in Hollywood who believe in God and who actually practice that, which is surprising. They don't necessarily talk about it, but they're that way. You just don't hear about it. What I've found is that people are that how you become successful in Hollywood is a lot of people give up. They're really close, or they're tired of it. They don't want to keep the grind going, and they just quit. And then they complain about why they didn't do this and didn't do that. Well, my belief is you never give up, no matter what the obstacles, and you can reach your goals. That's how I'll leave that. Is that fair?
Yeah. Great answers. So what's the connection with Epstein in Hollywood?
I'm sorry?
What's the connection with Epstein and Hollywood?
He's gone. I mean, he doesn't exist. So again, the people that I've worked with here in Hollywood and talked to, there was never any connect. But remember, I came in later. I've been here in Hollywood the last 6 years, and he already was on kind of his way out at that point. And I don't really know how connected he was in Hollywood, and I really kind of just stay away from that. He was a very evil man, so I see no reason to to dwell on him and what may or may not have happened here in Hollywood. Again, I think it's more about as an individual when you are in Hollywood. And I know actors. I mean, you want to hear an inside story? I knew an actor a musician who came here as a drummer, a phenom drummer when I was doing the band business 6 years ago. And he was in his 20s. He got a scholarship from Michigan. He came from Michigan to Minnesota. Really nice guy. Really a phenomenon. He got a scholarship in music school in Hollywood. And he actually he wanted us to play, our band leader, Bone Davis, wanted us to play for the band. And we were trying to get him on board to do a show. And somehow he got distracted and got involved in the dark side of Hollywood, meaning the drug side of it. That is a problem in Hollywood. That's more of a problem, I think, the other things you mentioned.
Yeah, there's a dark side of Hollywood. There's also a light side.
That's right. And he got involved in drugs and other things, and he ended up on the streets in a very short period of time. It was a very sad story, and fortunately, we were able to help him and get him back. And he went back to the Midwest to live with his mom, and it does happen. So you have to have a strong constituency, because the drug side, you wouldn't say the dark side, where you don't take care of yourself, you make mistakes and you go down the wrong path. They're all littered through on Hollywood Boulevard. If you've visited there, you see them all the time, and they're there. But to me, that's more of an individual choice. You don't have to do those things.
What did you know about Isaac Kappy?
About what?
Isaac Kappy. Isaac Kappy.
It's one of our films. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's an actor. He was an actor. Isaac Kappy. Do you know him?
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, you sent me that.
Yeah.
I never knew the gentleman. But I think it's sad what happened. I don't know exactly what went on with him. I saw what you sent to me. Again, he goes back a few years, and I wasn't really down here then. And he's more of a musician, so I never ran into him at that, back in the day. So I can't really comment on what happened to him, but it looks like a sad story. And why someone would do that, or why someone would want to do that. I've had those experiences I've had an experience with another musician, great gal. This just happened a few years ago. Wonderful person. And she was not just doing music. She was also an assistant veterinarian. She was going to school to become a vet. Other actors do other things besides their own career in acting and music. And we had talked a couple years ago. I saw her at an event, a very good friend, and we were going to get a coffee. And I introduced her to a producer who was, and actually Henning Morales, who I mentioned, put one of her pieces, one of her songs in his film, which is really awesome. And right after that, she passed away. And we don't really know to this day whether it was suicide or drugs or a combination of all the above. And she had she had some cancer problems. A young woman, though, in her 30s. So those things do happen, and it's very sad when it happens. But that's life also. So Is there a big conspiracy? That part I can't comment on. Are there individuals who go down the wrong path, make bad choices, or just have difficulties in life? That does happen.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yep.
Okay, so what does the word Hollywood means? Hollywood.
I'm sorry?
What does the word Hollywood means? The word Hollywood.
Oh, the Hollywood came from the holly tree, right? That's where it came from. So, and I don't know exactly who decided to name it. I have to go back and Google it, who named it Hollywood, but that's where it came from. And really, Hollywood's just a name. I mean, that's not
Hollywood
where
of the tree.
Excuse me?
It's the Hollywood of the tree. The tree of knowledge. The tree of life.
The tree of knowledge. Right. That is true. Right. But here's the thing about Hollywood. It's a great name, but really Hollywood is just a place. I mean, actors don't film there. Actors do live there, but the filming's done at the studios or on location, which is now all over the world. So Hollywood is really now, and I think always kind of has been, a tourist destination, a place to promote films, do premieres. But the meat of Hollywood, the meat of the business is really not done there. It's done other places. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because the studios are in Burbank, mainly. I mean, Warner Brothers, Universal, CBS, they're in the valley up in Burbank and Studio City. And that's where a lot of the work gets done. And now a lot of it gets done other places because of tax breaks and all those things. And obviously Atlanta, there's some bigger studios in Atlanta now. So Hollywood's just a name. I mean, I have an interesting comment about, and this goes back to Jimmy Cohen Rooney, Mickey Rooney's son. Mickey was a great guy, and he'd always talk to Jim. And he said, and Jimmy asked him, well, but what's going on in Hollywood? Well, what's really true about Hollywood? He's asking his dad. And his dad goes, well, when it comes to Hollywood, this is Mickey Rooney, an actor who's been at it for many years, a great film actor. Basically told Jimmy, believe half of what you see and even less of what you read. Because there's so much stuff that is behind the scenes that is promotion. But it's a great town. Overall, it's been good to us. We're moving forward in a lot of areas. And again, I think your audience should keep in mind that Hollywood's just a name. It's a place to go visit, to see the Walk of Stars, which is a really cool place. There's a really nice entertainment there. Jimmy Kimmel is one of the few shows that actually is produced there and shot there on Hollywood Boulevard. But the rest is usually, done somewhere else in terms of the actual business part of it.
And in Hollywood, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yes, it does. It does. But it's a great place, fun place. And there are real people that live here. They're real actors committed to their craft. I see day in and day out, I see actors who work very hard at their craft and keep doing the auditions. And those are the people that succeed. I just got a call the other day. We have a young actor, really great guy, Seth Guerrera. And we got him into one of the bigger commercial agencies. There's theatrical, which is acting, and commercial, which is what you see on TV and the internet that are, commercials, and which is called new media. And he just got a very nice check for a voiceover role. I mean, but he's worked. You wouldn't believe the amount of work he's done doing auditions. None of this, when you see a successful actor or someone who looks like they just broke out into the business, that's not how it happened. They've been working at their craft and at their work for 10, 15 years. And then you see them breaking out. There are very few people that break out from nowhere. There's a guy, and I'll give kudos to this gentleman. I'll mention him on here, Matt Riff. I think it's Riffe or Rife. He's a young comedian. I was driving through Hollywood several months ago, and I saw a billboard on the side of the Laugh Factory, and it said, on Sunset Boulevard, said, "Happy birthday, Matt Riff, and congratulations on your first Netflix special." I'm thinking, who is this guy? He's a young comedian. He's around 28 now. And I thought, well, where did he come from? Well, let me check his story out. And turns out he's been doing the gig, the comedic gig. When I say the gig, meaning he just doesn't perform at the Laugh Factory. He's been going all around the country, the U.S., little dive bars, little places you wouldn't know who they are, what these towns are. And he's been traveled, and he's done that for 10 years, since he was 18 years old. So sometimes the public doesn't realize the commitment and time that goes into becoming that name actor. Respect. So and when sometimes you see a young actor, well, they've been acting like maybe 17 or 18 or just broke out, but they've been acting since they've been a kid, 6 or 7 years old. So there's a reason why these things happen. It's not just, sometimes it is luck, in the right place at the right time. That does happen, no doubt about it. But again, you can say the more you're out there, the more you're making your own luck, right? So that's kind of how it works. I mean, and there are people who've been at it for many years, had big careers, and then drop out for a minute and come back, and then they're doing the same thing again. So it's a revolution, so to speak. It's an ongoing. What have you done for me lately? What are you going to do next? That's part of the Hollywood game.
Okay, another question. What is the best way to come into Hollywood?
The best way?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting question. There really is no best way. I mean, look at my story. I was in Hollywood for years, and here I am. You can come here at any age. That's the nice thing about Hollywood. There's no age limit. They hired 50, 60, 70, 80 actors and young actors too. And so that is kind of how there's really no age limit, which is the great thing about Hollywood. But there's always the commitment and the time. So I would say that the answer to that question is be prepared. Be
Okay,
prepared for the long haul. If you're coming to Hollywood, be prepared for the long haul. Have your financial house in order. There's so many actors that come here on a whim, and then they're stuck having to do waiting jobs, waitresses jobs, and it's tough because then you're working and trying to do auditions, working and auditioning. That's a tough gig. So my recommendation is to try and have a job here when you get here, be financially stable. That's the best way to attack Hollywood. But as you know, there's many stories, just like Sylvester Stallone. He was sleeping, didn't know how he was going to pay his bills in his apartment. That is part of Hollywood. There are people who've really sacrificed. I mean, people don't know. Michael J. Fox, he was living in a very difficult way for many years before he got that role in a Family, I think it's called Family Ties or Family Matter. And then he got the Back to the Future role. So many actors have sacrificed. That is part of, unfortunately, what can happen in Hollywood. It's nothing that's a bad thing.
Back to the Future is a great movie.
Oh, awesome. Michael Fox.
What are your thoughts about Starship Troopers?
Starship Troopers?
Yeah. About the Dutch producer, Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah, I don't really know the history of Starship Troopers. It sounds like you may know a little bit about it.
It's a great storyline.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
Yeah.
But I love the movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts about The Matrix?
Yeah, The Matrix, same thing. Yeah.
It's like one of the best science fiction movie ever, right?
Yes. Yes. That is true. Again, I don't know. I know the two brothers are all these sisters now. I'm not sure what. I think they changed a little bit, but I know some of the story about that, and it's a fascinating story, and it kind of has some relevance when you get into the theory of the different types of how people look at the world and what's real and what's not real, and all those things. I'm not going to get that deep right now, though.
Okay, it was a great interview.
Well, I hope you liked it. I hope the public enjoys it. I'm sorry?
Very interesting interview.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you for your time, Lars, and we'll look forward to talking more in the future.
You're very welcome, David. It's David Firestone from Hollywood.
Oh, and Lars, www.firestone.talent.com. If you want to check us out, www.firestone.talent.com, www.ffegworld.com, www.ffegworld.com, and then mindatorium.com. You can see some of the films we co-produced. Mindatorium.com.
Send me all the links.
I will do that.
I put them in the description of the video, so people can
Fantastic.
So people can find your links, your information, your website about who David Firestone is. This great man.
Thank you very much.
From Hollywood.
Thank you, Lars.
You're welcome.
All right.
Have a nice day, sir.
You too. Bye-bye.